Beloved, before we begin this message, I want to ask you something straight from the heart. Have you been praying for your relationship? Have you been asking God to restore love, to bring back peace, to heal the wounds that life has caused? If so, I want you to take a moment and share in the comments what you are believing God to do in your relationship today. Whether it's reconciliation, forgiveness, or the courage to walk in love again, your testimony can inspire someone else who is silently battling the same storm. When you write it down, you're not just sharing words, you're declaring your faith in front of heaven. There is a reason you found this message right now. Nothing about this moment is accidental. God has been watching every prayer, every tear, and every sleepless night where your heart felt heavy. He has seen the way you've tried to hold on when everything seemed to be falling apart. And today, He sent me to tell you, your answer has arrived. This is not just a random video or a coincidence. This is the Lord's way of reaching you, speaking directly to the deepest places of your soul, and assuring you that He has heard you. From the moment you started praying for your relationship, heaven began to move. Angels have been dispatched on your behalf. God has been aligning hearts, softening spirits, and breaking chains you could not see. It may have felt like nothing was happening, but beneath the surface, miracles were already in motion. This is the season where what was hidden will be revealed, and what was broken will begin to be restored. So, open your heart, listen closely, and let this word sink deep into your spirit, because the breakthrough you have been asking for is closer than you think. Sometimes, the most difficult part of waiting on God is the silence. You pray, you pour your heart out, you beg for an answer, and yet, all you seem to hear is nothing. But what you don't realize is that God's silence is never absence. In fact, His silence is often the greatest proof that He is working. Just like a seed planted deep into the soil hidden from sight, your answer has been buried in God's timing, growing roots so strong that when it finally appears, nothing will be able to uproot it. In your relationship, there have been moments where you thought it was over, moments where you wondered if love could survive one more argument, one more disappointment, one more misunderstanding. But God's hand has been holding you both together in ways you couldn't see, and His silence was only the quiet before the storm of restoration. You see, God is not interested in quick fixes. He is invested in lasting change. A bandage can cover a wound, but only deep healing can make it disappear. That's why your prayers have not been ignored. They have been processed through the perfect wisdom of the Father. He knows when you're ready, when your partner's heart is ready, and when the atmosphere around you has been prepared for the miracle. He is not rushing, because He knows that rushed blessings often crumble. What He is building for you is not fragile. It will stand the tests of life. It will weather future storms, and it will testify of His goodness. So, if you feel weary, remember this: the delay is not denial. Every day you have spent waiting is a day God has been using to shape the testimony you will soon share. And when it happens, it will not be just a small answer, it will be a full, overflowing blessing. You will look back and say, if God had answered me sooner, I would not have been ready for the magnitude of this miracle. And in that moment, you will understand that the waiting was worth every tear, every prayer, and every moment you thought you were alone. There are moments in life when the battle inside your heart feels louder than any voice around you. You try to explain to others the weight you carry, but they can't fully understand the prayers you've whispered at night, the silent tears you've wiped away before anyone could see, or the way you've clung to God when everything in your relationship felt like it was slipping away. This is the sacred space where God meets you, not in the noise of the world, but in the quiet surrender of your soul. And right there, in that hidden place, He begins His greatest work. While you were thinking nothing was changing, He was touching hearts, rearranging circumstances, and placing divine opportunities in motion that would lead to your breakthrough. Heaven does not operate on your schedule, but it always delivers on God's promise. Sometimes, the person you love the most is also the one who can wound you the deepest. Words said in frustration, moments of neglect, and misunderstandings can leave scars that feel permanent. But God is the master healer. He doesn't just treat the surface. He reaches into the deepest wounds and begins to heal from the inside out. And the beautiful thing is, when God heals, He also restores what was lost. He brings back joy, trust, and intimacy that you thought could never return. But here's the truth. Restoration is not just about going back to how things used to be. It's about God making it better than it ever was before, building something new on a foundation that cannot be shaken. And I need you to know this. The enemy has been trying to convince you that this relationship is beyond saving, that it's too damaged, too far gone. But that's because he fears what God is about to do. The enemy knows that if you and your partner are united under God's covering, you become a powerful force that can change lives, bless generations, and stand as a testimony of God's goodness. That's why he's been fighting so hard to divide you. But today, heaven is declaring over you, no weapon formed against your relationship shall prosper. The chains are breaking, the walls are falling, and what God has joined together, no one will be able to tear apart. When God decides to move in your relationship, he doesn't just patch up the visible cracks, he rebuilds the entire structure. From the ground up, you may think you know what restoration looks like, but God has a way of exceeding every expectation you've ever had. There will come a day when you look at the person you love and see them with completely new eyes, not through the lens of past mistakes, but through the beauty of grace and forgiveness. And that transformation will not come from human effort alone. It will be the undeniable fingerprint of God. This is why you cannot give up in the middle of the process. The pain you're feeling right now is not the end, it's the birthing. Pains of something new, something stronger, something ordained by heaven. You have to understand, God's work in your life is often invisible until it's complete. Think about how the roots of a tree grow hidden beneath the soil, quietly expanding, anchoring deeper into the earth long before the branches ever stretch toward the sky. In the same way, the work God is doing in your relationship is taking root right now, unseen by your natural eyes, but undeniable in the spiritual realm. Every prayer you've prayed has been like water to that seed. Every act of faith has been like sunlight, and every time you've resisted giving up, you've been nurturing the growth of the miracle that is coming. And here's the truth you need to hold on to. What God restores, he also protects. Once he breathes life back into your relationship, he will surround it with his covering, shielding it from the attacks that once threatened to destroy it. The storms may still come, the winds may still blow, but they will no longer shake you the way they once did, because you will be standing on a rock that cannot be moved. And when that day comes, you will realize that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you thought was wasted, was actually God writing the most beautiful chapter of your love story. There comes a moment when God steps into the scene and shifts everything in an instant. For weeks, months, or even years, you may have been carrying the same burdens, repeating the same prayers, and feeling as though nothing was moving forward. But when his appointed time arrives, change happens so quickly, it will take your breath away. The conversations that once ended in arguments will suddenly be filled with understanding. The walls that seemed impossible to break will crumble in silence. The heart that felt closed and cold will begin to open, not because of pressure, but because the gentle touch of God's Spirit will soften it. This is the kind of transformation that human effort can't force. It's the supernatural restoration that only comes when heaven intervenes. But you must also understand that before this breakthrough appears, God often prepares you in ways you may not fully recognize. He teaches you to love without expecting immediate return, to forgive before an apology comes, and to pray not just for your needs, but for the healing of the other person. These lessons are not easy. They stretch your heart and challenge your pride. Yet, they are the very tools God will use to build a relationship that can stand the weight of any storm. Many times, the change you seek begins within you, and as God transforms your heart, the atmosphere around you begins to shift. This is why you cannot despise the waiting season. It is the place where God shapes you into the person who can carry the blessing he's about to release. And when that blessing arrives, it will be more than just an answered prayer. It will be a testimony that radiates beyond your own life. Others will see the way your relationship has been restored and will begin to believe that if God could do it for you, he can do it for them too. Your story will become a light in the darkness for couples who are barely holding on. And your victory will remind them that God is still in the business of healing, mending, and making all things new. That is why the enemy has fought you so hard, but it is also why your victory will be so much sweeter, because it will not only bless you, it will bless everyone who hears what God has done. Every great move of God begins with a surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up on what you love, but the kind that means placing it completely in God's hands. For so long, you have been holding your relationship tightly, trying to fix it with your own strength, trying to control outcomes, and trying to protect yourself from more pain. But the Lord is inviting you to release that grip, not because He wants to take it away from you, but because He wants to return it to you healed, restored, and overflowing with joy. When you stop wrestling with the how and trust Him with the when, you open the door for His supernatural power to move. And that power doesn't just repair what is broken, it breathes new life into places that felt dead for years. There is a depth of peace that comes when you truly place something in God's hands. It's not that the storms disappear, but they no longer control your heart. You stop reacting to every shift in emotion, every sharp word, every moment of distance, and instead you begin to anchor yourself in God's promise. You start to believe that His word is truer than your feelings, that His plan is greater than your fears, and that His timing is more perfect than your own. In this place of trust, you find the strength to love even when it's hard, to speak life when it would be easier to stay silent, and to believe in the promise when circumstances still look the same. And it is in that space of faith that miracles are born. God delights in showing His power when we reach the end of our strength, when we have exhausted every option, tried every conversation, and still can't make it work on our own. That's when He steps in and says, "Now watch what I can do." Your relationship will not be restored because you found the perfect words or the perfect strategy. It will be restored because the hand of God touched it. And when others see the transformation, they will know it wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it wasn't coincidence, it was the undeniable work of the Almighty. There is something powerful that happens when you truly understand that God is not only aware of your pain, He is personally invested in your healing. Every sigh you've released in frustration, every tear that has fallen in the quiet of the night, every time you've whispered, "Lord, I don't know what else to do," none of it has been ignored. The Bible says He collects every tear in a bottle, and that means nothing you have endured has been wasted. In fact, God has been weaving those very moments into the testimony He is preparing for you. The process may feel unbearable at times, but even the heaviness you carry now will serve a purpose. One day you will speak of these nights, and instead of breaking, your voice will carry strength, because you will know, without a doubt, that God was holding you together when everything else was falling apart. And here is something you need to remember: the same God who parted the Red Sea, who made the walls of Jericho fall, who brought Lazarus back from the dead, is the same God who is working in your relationship right now. The miracles you read about are not just stories of the past, they are reminders of what He can do in your present. If He can command nature, silence storms, and rewrite the fate of nations, surely He can breathe life into what feels broken between you and the one you love. This isn't too small for Him. Your pain is not insignificant to the Creator of the universe. In His eyes, your relationship matters deeply because you matter deeply. That's why the enemy has been relentless. He knows that if your love is restored under God's covering, it becomes a weapon against him. A relationship rooted in Christ carries a power that reaches beyond to people. It impacts children, families, communities, even generations to come. This is why the battle has been so intense, why misunderstandings have multiplied, why moments of hope have been followed by sudden setbacks. But the enemy's attacks are only a sign that breakthrough is near. The closer you get to the moment God has appointed, the harder the resistance becomes. Yet, it is in this very tension that God's victory shines the brightest, because when He steps in, the battle will end so suddenly, you will stand in awe of how fast everything changes. When God begins to answer, it often happens in ways you never expected. You might think the solution will come through a certain conversation, a sudden change of heart, or a dramatic moment of reconciliation, but God's methods are higher than our imagination. Sometimes the breakthrough comes in subtle shifts, a softened tone where there used to be harshness, a small act of kindness where there was once distance, an unexpected memory that reminds you both why you fell in love in the first place. These are not coincidences, they are divine fingerprints. marking the beginning of restoration. And though they may seem small, they are the first rays of sunlight after a long, dark night, signaling that a new day has begun. It's important to remember that God's answers are not always immediate, because He is not just answering your prayer. He is building your character and aligning your heart with His. If He simply gave you what you asked for without changing you in the process, you might return to the same struggles that broke you in the first place. So while you wait, He teaches you patience, humility, and unconditional love. He teaches you to pray not only for your partner's transformation, but for your own heart to be renewed. And this growth becomes the foundation upon which your restored relationship will stand, ensuring it will not crumble under the weight of future storms. And when the fullness of His answer comes, it will be clear that it was God and God alone who orchestrated it. You will look back and realize that the delays, the struggles, and even the moments of hopelessness were all necessary to bring you to this point. You will understand that every closed door was protection, every unanswered prayer was redirection, and every test was preparation. And as you hold the miracle in your hands, your heart will swell with gratitude, not just because you received what you prayed for, but because you have been transformed in the process. This is the kind of answer that changes not only your relationship, but your entire walk with God. There's a sacred beauty in the way God turns brokenness into something unshakable. You may have thought your relationship was too damaged to recover, too far gone to be healed. But God specializes in bringing life to what appears lifeless. Think of dry, barren land cracked under the heat of years without rain. To human eyes, it looks hopeless. But when the rain finally comes, not only does the ground drink deeply, but hidden seeds begin to sprout. Seeds that had been waiting silently for the right moment to bloom. In the same way, there are seeds of love, trust, and unity in your relationship that have been lying dormant. They have not died, they've simply been waiting for the living water of God's presence to flow again. And when it does, those seeds will grow stronger than ever before. But before the rain falls, God often allows you to reach a place where you can no longer rely on your own strength. It is here, in the quiet surrender, that you finally see that the fight was never meant to be yours alone. You begin to understand that God is not asking you to fix everything, He is asking you to trust Him with everything. You stop fighting against your partner and start fighting for your relationship in prayer. You stop focusing on what they did wrong and start asking God to show you what He wants to change in you. This shift is not weakness, it is divine wisdom. Because when you align your heart with God's will, He begins to work in ways you never thought possible. And here's the truth: when the answer comes, it won't just restore your relationship, it will redefine it. The love you share will no longer be fragile or conditional, but rooted in the kind of grace that can withstand anything. Forgiveness will replace resentment, peace will replace tension, and joy will replace sorrow. And as you look back on the road that brought you here, you will see the fingerprints of God all over it. You will know that without Him, none of it would have been possible. And in that moment, your gratitude will overflow, not only for the relationship that was saved, but for the faith that was forged in the fire of the waiting. There is a moment in every faith journey where you realize that God was not just answering your prayer, He was reshaping your entire life. When you look at your relationship now, you may see cracks, misunderstandings, and disappointments. But God sees a blueprint. He sees the finished structure, fully restored, standing firm on a foundation of grace and truth. He is not intimidated by the damage. In fact, He steps into brokenness with the authority of a master builder. And unlike human builders, who might repair just enough to make something look good on the outside, God restores from the inside out. He rebuilds trust, He heals the wounds of the heart, and He reawakens the hope that has been buried under layers of pain. When He is finished, what once looked fragile will stand unshakable. This is why you cannot measure your progress only by what you see today. The most powerful changes often happen where the eye cannot see, deep in the heart, in quiet moments, in conversations with Him that no one else hears. Sometimes, God works by completely transforming the atmosphere of your relationship without you even realizing it. He may open doors for communication that were once slammed shut. He may soften the words spoken between you and your partner, turning harshness into gentleness. And He may lead you both into moments of vulnerability that strip away pride and rebuild intimacy. These are the divine tools He uses, and while they may feel small at first, they are actually the most powerful steps toward lasting restoration. And when the time comes for God to reveal the fullness of what He's been doing, you will stand in awe. The bitterness that once lingered will be replaced by peace so deep it will feel supernatural. The doubts that kept you awake at night will be silenced by undeniable evidence of His faithfulness. And perhaps most beautiful of all, you will see that the love between you has matured, deepened, and transformed into something far more resilient than what you started with. You will no longer fear the storms, because you will know the one who calms them walks with you. And this realization will not just heal your relationship, it will change how you see God forever. There will come a day when you realize that every season of waiting, every unanswered question, and every tear you shed was part of a divine orchestration far greater than you could comprehend in the moment. You will look back and see that God was not delaying your answer to punish you. He was preparing it so it could bless you beyond what you even knew to ask for. So much of our frustration in relationships comes from wanting things fixed instantly, but instant fixes rarely last. God is not interested in giving you a temporary solution. He is after a transformation so deep that the brokenness you once knew will never have the power to return. He is protecting you from repeating the same cycles by changing the very roots of your connection. And while that work is being done, He is also strengthening your faith so you will never doubt His goodness again. It's in these hidden seasons that you learn what it truly means to depend on Him. When you cannot see progress, when conversations seem stuck, when apologies feel too far away, this is where God teaches you to walk by faith and not by sight. You begin to pray differently, not just asking for the outcome you want, but for the heart to endure while you wait. You start to realize that this journey isn't only about your relationship, it's also about your relationship with Him. He is teaching you that His presence is your greatest need, and that even before the breakthrough comes, you can have peace simply by knowing He is with you. And then, almost without warning, the shift begins. The walls you thought were permanent start to weaken. The distance you felt begins to close. The coldness in the other person's eyes melts into something softer, something familiar, something full of hope. You realize that God has been working behind the scenes all along, moving pieces you could not move and opening doors you could not open. And when it happens, you will know it wasn't your strength, your strategy, or your persistence alone. It was the power of a faithful God who hears, who sees, and who responds at exactly the right time. When God's timing finally collides with your prayers, it's like the breaking of dawn after the longest night of your life. For so long, you've been walking through shadows, trying to navigate the uncertainty, trying to hold on to faith when everything around you told you to let go. But the moment His light breaks through, every dark corner of your heart begins to glow with renewed hope. The heaviness that once pressed down on your chest lifts, and for the first time in a long time, you breathe deeply, not just air, but peace. This peace doesn't come because every problem has instantly disappeared, but because you know that God has taken the lead. You no longer carry the relationship on your own shoulders. You've placed it in hands that never fail. This is the kind of shift you cannot manufacture. It is supernatural. And when it comes, it changes not only the relationship, but the way you see love itself. You realize that true love is not about perfection, but about persistence. It's about two imperfect people learning to lean on a perfect God, allowing His grace to be the glue that holds them together. Suddenly, the little irritations that once felt so big begin to lose their power. The arguments that used to end with slammed doors now end in prayer. The wounds that felt so raw begin to close, not because time passed, but because God touched them. His healing is not a surface-level bandage, it's a deep restoration that mends both hearts in ways neither of you could have done alone. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that others will see the difference. They will notice the joy that has returned to your voice, the peace that radiates from your home, and the unity that now defines your connection. Your story will become living proof that God still answers prayers, still mends what's been torn, and still breathes life into what was declared dead. And in that moment, you will understand why the wait was necessary. Every tear, every prayer, every sleepless night was not wasted. It was the foundation of the miracle you now hold in your hands. and you will know that you are not just in a restored relationship, you are standing in the middle of a testimony that will echo for generations. There's a power in your testimony that the enemy fears. That's why the attacks on your relationship have been so relentless, because the moment God completes what He started, your story will carry an authority that shakes the very foundations of doubt in the lives of those who hear it. Think about it. The same people who may have whispered, "It's over," will be forced to witness a restoration that defies logic. The same ones who saw you walking through seasons of heartbreak will see you walking in joy. And they will have no choice but to acknowledge that it was God who turned it around. This is not just about saving a relationship. It's about God putting His glory on display through your life. He is writing a chapter so full of redemption that it will inspire hope in others who thought their own stories were beyond repair. And while the enemy has tried to use pain to break you, God has been using it to build you. Every misunderstanding you've endured has taught you patience. Every season of distance has deepened your appreciation for closeness. Every tear you've cried has softened your heart to give grace more freely. You are not the same person you were when this battle began. You are stronger, wiser, and more dependent on God than ever before. And it's this transformation inside of you that is the greatest evidence that your miracle is near. Because when God changes you first, He is positioning you to be the anchor in the very storm that once threatened to take you under. And here's the truth you need to hold on to. God never starts something He doesn't intend to finish. The work He began in your heart and in the heart of the one you love will not be left incomplete. Even now, He is aligning conversations, orchestrating divine appointments, and removing obstacles that have kept you apart. Some of these shifts you will see, others will happen quietly, hidden from your view, until the day He reveals them all at once. But when that moment comes, you will know that every second of waiting, every moment of surrender, and every ounce of faith you held onto was worth it, because the miracle will be so complete, so undeniable that only God could have done it. There is a moment in every story of restoration when the atmosphere shifts, not just in circumstances, but in the very air around you. You can't fully explain it, but you sense it deep in your spirit. The same heaviness that once clung to your heart begins to lift, replaced by an unshakable peace that doesn't even make sense in the natural. This is the Holy Spirit whispering, "It's already done." You may not see the full picture yet, but you start to notice the signs. The tone in conversations changes. The tension in the room softens. The distance between hearts begins to close. It's like watching the first rays of the sunrise. After a long night, you know the light is coming, even before it fills the sky. This is how God works. He often lets you feel the breakthrough before you see it, so your faith will rise to meet what He is about to release. And in that moment, your prayers begin to change. You stop pleading in desperation and start thanking Him in advance. You no longer pray from a place of fear, wondering if He will answer. You pray from a place of certainty, knowing that He already has. Gratitude becomes your language, and it invites even more of His presence into your life. You begin to see how every painful chapter was necessary to bring you to this point. And instead of resenting the process, you start to honor it. Because without the valley, you would never appreciate the mountaintop. Without the nights of weeping, you would never fully treasure the mornings of joy. God has not just been answering your prayer, He has been preparing you to keep the blessing. Once it arrives, and here's the beauty, when the answer comes, it will not feel rushed or forced. It will fit so perfectly into place that you will know it could only have been orchestrated by heaven. There will be no confusion, no lingering doubt, only peace. The conversations you once dreaded will flow with ease. The person who seemed unreachable will meet you halfway, not out of obligation, but out of a genuine change of heart. And in that moment, you will not only see God's hand in your relationship, you will feel His heart for you. You will understand that His delay was never denial. It was a setup for a blessing so complete, it will mark you for the rest of your life. There comes a point in the journey where God's presence becomes so real, it's almost tangible. You begin to notice that the weight you've been carrying doesn't feel as heavy, not because the circumstances have completely changed yet, but because you're no longer carrying them alone. It's in this place of holy partnership that your faith begins to overflow. You stop measuring your hope by what your eyes can see and start measuring it by what you know about the character of God. You know He is faithful. You know He does not lie. You know that every promise He speaks is as good as done, even if it hasn't yet manifested in the natural. And this certainty begins to anchor you, not only keeping you steady, but giving you the courage to love more boldly in the middle of uncertainty. This shift is powerful because it begins to change the very atmosphere of your relationship. The sharp edges of your conversations start to smooth. The cold silences begin to warm. Even if everything isn't perfect, you sense that something divine is unfolding just beneath the surface. God is dismantling walls that took years to build, brick by brick, until nothing remains but open space for grace to fill. And the best part, He's doing it in such a way that neither of you will be able to take the credit. When people ask how it happened, your only answer will be, "It was God." That testimony will carry a weight far beyond your own story, planting seeds of hope in hearts that are ready to give up. And here is the truth: when God restores, He doesn't just bring you back to where you were, He takes you further than you've ever been. This next season will not be about survival, it will be about thriving. The love you share will deepen in ways you couldn't imagine. The trust will be stronger, and the bond between you will become unshakable. You will find yourselves laughing again, dreaming again, and building together with a unity that could only have been birthed in the presence of God. This is not just the answer to your prayer, it is the fulfillment of a promise that will carry you for a lifetime. There's a reason God often allows the breakthrough to come after the deepest valley, because the contrast makes His glory undeniable. When you've walked through nights so dark you couldn't see the path ahead, the light of His answer doesn't just illuminate the road, it transforms the entire landscape. The pain you once thought would drown you becomes the very proof that you were carried. Every harsh word, every silent night, every moment of distance suddenly loses its sting, because you see how God used even the most broken pieces to create something beautiful. And in that moment, you understand the battle wasn't just for your relationship, it was for your faith, your endurance, and your ability to trust God with your whole heart. It's in this realization that you begin to worship differently, not because the journey was easy, but because you see the fingerprints of God on every step of it. You remember the days you almost gave up and now realize that the strength to keep going was a gift from Him. You remember the times you felt unheard and now realize He was listening all along, positioning you for the answer at exactly the right time. And as gratitude rises, it begins to overflow, not just in words, but in the way you love, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. This shift is so evident that others notice it. Even if they don't know the details of your story, they will see joy where there used to be heaviness, peace where there used to be chaos, and hope where there used to be despair. And here's the most remarkable part: your relationship, once a battlefield, becomes a sanctuary. The same home that felt tense and uncertain will now carry an atmosphere of safety, love, and God's presence. You'll find yourselves praying together without it feeling forced, sharing your hearts without fear of rejection, and celebrating the small victories that once went unnoticed. This is what restoration looks like when God is the architect. It's not just fixed, it's made new. And when you step into this season, you won't just say, "God answered my prayer." You'll say, "God exceeded my prayer in ways I never dreamed possible." There will be a moment so sudden and yet so perfectly timed when everything you have prayed for begins to align before your very eyes. The conversations that once ended in distance will flow with unexpected understanding. The heart that felt cold will show signs of warmth. The walls that seemed immovable will collapse quietly, not with force, but under the gentle weight of God's Spirit moving between you. And in that moment, you will realize that the shift was never about your ability to control the outcome. It was always about God's power to rewrite the story. You will look into the eyes of the one you love and see something you thought was gone forever. The reflection of a love that has been refined by fire and made stronger than before. And this restoration will not be fragile. It will not be something you have to cling to in fear of losing again. No, this time it will carry the seal of God's faithfulness, and that makes it unshakable. The bond between you will be rooted so deeply in His grace that no misunderstanding, no outside pressure, and no attack from the enemy will be able to uproot it. You will speak to each other differently, listen to each other with new ears, and cherish each other with the awareness that what you now have is a gift, one that came at a cost. one that was fought for in prayer, one that was delivered by the very hand of God. And because of that, you will guard it fiercely, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. And the beauty of this moment is that it won't just be about the two of you. The testimony of your restoration will become a beacon for others who are standing where you once stood, tired, uncertain, and ready to give up. They will hear your story and find courage to believe again. They will see your joy and realize that God is still in the business of answering prayers. And as your home becomes a place of peace, laughter, and unity, it will radiate His presence to everyone who steps inside. This is not just the restoration of a relationship, it is the planting of a legacy that will impact generations to come. As you step closer to the moment of full restoration, something begins to shift inside of you, a confidence that no longer depends on what you see, but on what you know to be true about God. You realize that even if the journey was longer than you expected, His timing has been perfect all along. Every delay was a layer of protection. Every closed door was an act of mercy. And every unanswered question was preparing you to receive an answer far greater than the one you imagined. This awareness brings with it a peace so deep that it begins to spill over into every area of your life. You stop living in a posture of desperation and start walking in a posture of expectation, knowing that the same God who started this work is moments away from completing it. And then comes the unmistakable evidence, those little confirmations that whisper to your spirit, "It's happening now." A word spoken at the right time, a gesture that feels familiar yet brand new, a softness in the heart of the one you love that could only have been placed there by the hand of God. These moments are like pieces of a puzzle coming together after years of scattered chaos. Each one strengthens your faith, not because they are grand displays, but because they are deeply personal, custom designed by God to let you know He's been listening to every prayer. And with every sign, your anticipation grows, not in anxiety, but in gratitude. This gratitude becomes the lens through which you see everything. Even the past pain begins to look different, not as wasted years, but as sacred preparation. You start to see that the tears watered the seeds of love, that the silence taught you to listen for God's voice, and that the waiting shaped you into the person who could carry this blessing well. And as you stand in this moment so close to the fulfillment, you can almost touch it. You realize that the story God has written is more beautiful than anything you could have crafted yourself. You are not just about to witness a miracle, you are about to live in one, day after day, for the rest of your life. And then, without warning, the moment arrives. It's not loud or dramatic, it's holy. You feel it in your spirit before you even see it in the natural. The distance that once felt like a canyon between you suddenly feels like it's been bridged. The words you've longed to hear are spoken, not in haste, but with sincerity. And you know they are real because they carry a weight that only truth can hold. You watch the walls crumble, not because you forced them down, but because the presence of God filled the space where fear once lived. In that instant, you understand that this is not the result of clever strategies or human persuasion. This is the supernatural answer to years of prayer. Tears come, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming awareness that you are standing in the very thing you once thought was impossible. The one you love is not only standing beside you, they are with you in heart, mind, and spirit. You can see it in their eyes, hear it in their tone, and feel it in the way they reach for your hand. The atmosphere has shifted completely. The tension is gone, replaced by a peace that feels almost tangible. And in that peace, you find rest for the first time in what feels like forever. You know deep in your bones that this is the moment you've been waiting for. And as you hold onto this miracle, gratitude floods every part of you. Gratitude for the tears that taught you to trust. Gratitude for the waiting that built your endurance. Gratitude for the God who never stopped working, even when you couldn't see it. You realize that the restoration you're living in now is not just an answered prayer, it's a testament to the faithfulness of a God who keeps every promise He makes. And with that understanding, you make a silent vow to guard this gift, to nurture it, and to keep God at the center of it, so that the love you now share will not only survive, but flourish for the rest of your days. This is the moment where the story comes full circle. You remember the nights when you thought it was over, the moments you felt invisible, unheard, and unloved. You remember kneeling in prayer with tears streaming down your face, begging God to do something. anything to save what felt like it was slipping away. And now, here you stand, not in pieces, but whole, not in despair, but in joy, not in doubt, but in unshakable faith. You are living proof that God does not just hear prayers, He answers them in ways that exceed every expectation. The relationship that was once on the brink of breaking has been transformed into a testimony of His goodness. What was meant to destroy you has become the very thing that draws you closer to Him. And as you stand in this new chapter, you begin to see the bigger picture. God wasn't just restoring a relationship, He was building a foundation that will hold for the rest of your life. He was shaping your heart, strengthening your faith, and showing you that His ways are higher, His thoughts are greater, and His love is deeper than you could ever measure. This is why the waiting was necessary. This is why the pain was not wasted. Every moment you thought was silence was actually God speaking in ways you couldn't yet understand. And now, with every glance, every laugh, every quiet moment of unity, you are reminded that this love story is not just yours, it's His. So as you move forward, let this be the truth that carries you. If God can do this for you, He can do it for anyone. Never let go of the one who brought you here. Keep Him at the center. Guard the love He restored, and let your story shine as a light for those still waiting for their own miracle. Because this is not the end, it's the beginning of a new season where love is stronger, faith is deeper, and hope is alive. And every time you look back, you will know with certainty the God who answered this prayer will be faithful to every promise yet to come.